The house has broken ground. We were just walking around out there and I'm like, holy shit, it's really happening. There's there's gravel down and like some loose framing up and I'm like, whoa, we're really doing this. It's so weird when you've been like planning and talking about something for like a year and then it starts actually happening and you're like, holy fuck, this is real. But yeah, it's exciting. It's cool.
Nice. It was all a dream
It was all a
until now.
dream until it wasn't.
I used to read Word Up magazine.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
If you know,
that's
you know.
what's new with me. I oh, this is new, I guess. I thought about like when I was looking into this, I was like, I'm gonna share this with Jer and Mike and just see what their reactions are to it. Because Mike, you at one point were in like a sales role of some kind, right?
Oh yeah. Feel like I've been in a sales role for a majority of my life ever since
Yeah.
27 years old. Yeah.
So tell me what your first reaction is to this, because I got reached out to by this company that is honestly kind of similar to the program that I was high ticket closing for. They're like a B2C offer, teaching people how to, launch an online business. Been around for a while, so like they seem pretty reputable. And they're looking for a closer. They want somebody who's willing to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And for 10% commission, if you pull in less than 100K per month, that goes down to 8%. And what else? They said that their average closer makes a minimum of 14K per month. But then when I was watching some of their testimonial videos from some of the closers on their team, there were people saying like, yeah, I just had my best month and it was 8K. And I only have the perspective of having one high ticket role. And so I'm not as versed here. But in that high ticket role that I did, my commission was 15%. And it was an additional 10% on top of that if I set the call myself. So I could make up to 25% commission. So my first thought was like 8 to 10% feels low. But as I was talking to some other people, they're like, no, 10% is like pretty common in the closing space. But I learned today that their DM setters make 10%. And I've never seen that before where like the setters make the same percentage as the closers. But honestly, the biggest hang up for me was the 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, because totally understand that in sales, like the more available you are, like that's a really big asset for you. They're like, we want people who are going to have open calendars. So I get that. But I feel like for me, I just don't want to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, honestly. Maybe
they pay you is it commission only or do they pay you like a wage?
No, it's commission only.
Well, I know in the US, I don't know if it's different than Canada. They can't really dictate how many hours you work unless you're an employee. I don't know if you guys have the same labor laws that we do, but you can't tell someone's schedule unless you pay them like benefits.
Yeah, I think that that's just their way of being like, if you're not willing to work this, then this role isn't for you. They're like, we want people who are hungry and all that stuff, which, makes sense. But I was like,
that's a lot, though. That's a lot. That's a pretty high expectation, especially the 6 days. I mean, I can see 5, but 6 seems a little steep. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah. There's a few things about it. Yeah, 6 days is a lot. And even like 6 days on paper it might look a certain way, but 6 days in real life also, and also doing 10 hours per day, 6 days a week. And like, I don't know if that's like they're actually going to hold you to that, or is it just like,
well, so that's one of the things I asked them, because they first did a group interview and I was like, oh, this is cool. I've never done a group interview before. So I was like, I felt like I went into the whole thing being like, I'm probably not going to take this, because they said in the initial thing that they wanted six days a week. And I was like, I just don't know that I'm at a point in my life where I want to give that kind of commitment. And I'm sure there's people out there that are maybe hungrier or whatever that would. But I was like, I'm going to take the interview and like just see, because I feel like everything's an experience. So did the group interview. That was cool. I got a message like immediately after from like the headhunter or whatever. And he was like, hey, he wants to meet with you like ASAP. And I was like, oh, cool. I guess I like did good in the group interview. And one of the things I asked him on the follow-up was like, so I saw in your guys' like description that you want somebody 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Is that like pretty strict? Like, do you want them available certain hours a day? Like, do your closers have flexibility in their schedule? And he was like, yeah, we want our closers to be like pretty available, especially like in the evenings and stuff. And he was asking me like how late in the day I'd be willing to work. But then at one point, like later in the interview, he was asking me like what I like to do outside of work. And I was talking about going to the gym. I was like, it's a non-negotiable for me. I go to the gym every afternoon and I block it off like it's a meeting. And he was like, yeah, no, we're totally flexible. Like if you wanted to take time to go to the gym, like that's totally cool. And I'm like, well, that kind of contradicts what you've been saying this whole time, though. So that's a little confusing. But yeah, they said they had in the job description, like a typical work day of champions is they want you to be available. Yeah, right. You just smell the masculinity.
I'm getting red flags. So
I was smelling something else other than masculinity. Actually, I don't like when people when they come up with creative names for things for making people work ridiculous hours. Oh, we're looking for a rock star. This is
you know what they said?
Champion list of like rules and shit. Like, listen, I'm all about hard work, but like, I'm not about being worked to the bone. We
want a glass eater. What the fuck?
They want a glass eater, is what it said in the application. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
We want someone that doesn't leave their desk ever.
Yes, yeah. So,
glass eater. Come on, man.
Yeah. So they said the typical workday of champions is they do a 1-hour meeting every day from Monday to Friday, which immediately I was like, okay, that's interesting. I've been part of teams before where it's like we have a meeting every Monday, or even like we have a meeting every Monday and Friday. But every day makes me wonder like what's happening on those meetings that's like essential. So there's a 1-hour team meeting every day. They want you to do 1 hour of admin tasks at the end of your day. So like reporting your metrics for the day, like, keeping your pipeline clean or whatever. Like it seems like they're pretty on it when it comes to like tracking and stuff within the company, which is good. I think is good because like the last high ticket role I had, there was no tracking at all. I basically made my own tracking because I was like, I can't believe you guys don't want to know like what my close rate is. So I just started tracking it all for myself. But so 1 hour meeting, 1 hour of admin tasks every day. They want you to do 1 hour of training every day in some capacity, whether like they bring in a coach to listen to your calls with you and coach you through it, or they want you to, be listening back to your calls or just doing some kind of like high ticket sales development. So that's 3 hours of like training and meetings. And then they want you to be available for live calls for 7 hours. So they're very clear. Like we want you to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And the thing that kept coming to my mind is like, I understand that in the world of high ticket sales or even just sales, like this is more of a thing, like being available, being on, not uncommon. But the thing that kept coming to my mind is like, I left the corporate world because I wanted autonomy over my schedule. And it feels like if I were to take on this role, I would have none.
Yeah. It's interesting with these high ticket closer or like remote closing positions. I actually do know some things about it, but I know about it through my buddy, through two buddies. One, my buddy Gage, and two, my buddy Anselmo. And my buddy Anselmo is now doing this. Like, this is just this is his thing now. He's been through probably, at this point, I think he's probably done 3 or 4 of these roles. And yeah, they're not all the same. Some are definitely better than others. I know for a fact my buddy Anselmo now is on one that's like seems to be pretty killer. Like, he actually legit, from at least the last time I checked with him, he might be making more now for all I know. But last time I checked with him, he was probably making about 14 or 15 K per month. And the funny thing is, when me and him first started speaking the very first time, he was in Growth Ghosts, and he one of the first things he asked me was like, Mike, is all this really possible? And he was talking about the whole like online money thing, because it was completely new to him. And now, like, he's killing it in something completely different from ghostwriting, right? But yeah, so it's been cool to see that. But yeah, I've learned a lot about it through him. With his role, I think he's asked to maybe do 5, but then he just wants to, like, I think he also does like a half day on Saturday. I guess something that also strikes me as kind of the red flag that you spotted as well is that they said, oh yeah, like our average closer is making 14K a month. And then you listen to the testimonials and you're hearing guys be like, yeah, just had my best month yet, 8K. And you're kind of like, all right, something's not adding up here.
Big difference.
I've seen stuff like that before. You see, it's like, yeah, the average person does this, and it's like you see the testimonials, and it's like not exactly what they're saying.
Yeah.
So that's a red flag. That's also a lot of meetings. A meeting, an hour-long meeting every single day. Like, I don't know. I just don't think that the feedback loop is long enough. Like, I could see that if you go, every like 3 days or something like this, you put in a lot of reps and then you have another meeting. That makes more sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, maybe, because I know I've heard Alex Hormozy talk about this before, that, a good sales team should be meeting regularly to do things like role play or like listen back to calls or whatever. So maybe it's something like that where like there's a real intent to the meeting, because I will say I'll give this company credit. They seem like they're very on top of like tracking people's numbers and making sure people are hitting their KPIs. And I asked him about like the 8% thing, because like I said, it's 10% commission, but if you bring in less than 100K per month, then it goes down to 8%. And so I asked him about that, and he's like, well, if somebody's only making 8%, then they're not hitting their KPIs, and there's something that we need to look at there. So it seems like they're very like on top of helping people and giving feedback and helping them improve. So like, I have no doubt that if I were interested and took on that role, that like I would learn a lot. But I honestly just don't feel like I'm at a point in my life where I want to like grind at high ticket sales anymore. I just don't want it bad enough.
I just looked something up. It said a company in Canada cannot dictate a set schedule or control the hours of an independent contractor. Doing so risks triggering a work misclassification, meaning that Canada Revenue Agency or Labor Board may legally reclassify the contractor as an employee. So they can't do that for you guys either. What they're doing is actually like not legal. Like, they can't set your schedule, and like the only reason like they could do that for like a W-2 employee is because they get benefits and they pay them to set their schedule. What they're trying to do is they're trying to like treat you like an independent but set your schedule, which is actually illegal.
So you're saying if a company doesn't hire you as an employee, then they can't tell you when you have to be available? Is that what the...
Exactly. Like, they can't tell you when you, just like Uber, right? The only reason Uber works and you could just go hop in an Uber and drive whenever you want as an independent is because you're independent. They can't say you got to be there at like 8 o'clock in the morning. They can by incentivizing you, by giving you like bonuses and shit, but they can't set your schedule. Like, that's just not legal.
I'll bet maybe the way that they're getting around this is they with the messaging, they're like, oh yeah, we're really looking for somebody who's available 6 days a week, 10 hours per day.
Yeah.
But then if in the actual contract, I'll bet maybe it doesn't say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are they
Yeah.
Canadian though?
They're not. No, they're based in the US. Actually, I think the guy who runs it is European, actually.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's interesting because I've seen this actually on other postings as well. Like they might not, like Mike said, they might not put it in the contract that like you have to be available this many hours a day from this time to this time. But I've seen that in a lot of roles where like I don't believe they're hiring you as a full-time employee. Like I see this all the time on like, you know, entrepreneur job postings and stuff where they're like, we're looking for somebody to be a project manager and, you know, these are your responsibilities, da, 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 da. And then you get more details and they're like, yeah, so we want this person to ideally, you know, be available from, you know, 9 to 5 Eastern time. Would that work for you? So they might get around like putting it in the agreement. But if you were to say no in the interview process, like, hey, can I just work when I want? Like if you were to push back on that and you're like, hey, actually legally, you guys can't tell me that I have to be available from 9 to 5 because I'm not an employee, I'm a contractor, then they just probably wouldn't hire you because they're like, well, we're looking for somebody who's okay with that. You know, like they skirt around the rules. People do this all the time. They might not put it in writing, but they're like, we need you to be available when the rest of the team is working. So if you're not willing to be available, you know, 9 to 5 Eastern time, then like next.
Yeah. And then, yeah, if it changed later on and then you were like, I can't work this much, then they'd probably just fire you for a different reason, you know?
Yeah, a different reason.
Well, they can't fire you if you're not an employee either. So that's kind of like the whole thing. Like if you're an employee, they could fire you and then you can get benefits. But since you're independent, there's nothing to be fired. What they're doing is illegal. Yeah.
They would let you go though. Like if you were like, if you got the job and you're like, actually, I can't do 9 to 5 Eastern. I can do, I don't know, fucking 9 to 5 Central or some shit. Like if you push back on it, they just be like, okay, well, we'll just find somebody else for the role. So whether they technically call that firing or parting ways or whatever, you can still let go of a contractor.
Right? Yeah. Like I guarantee their contract is probably like a very stripped down version of what they're pushing in terms of messaging, right? Which probably there's a lot of gray area there as well. Because if you have messaging that like really doesn't match your contract, that's probably something else. But I also I'll play devil's advocate for 1 second. And it's actually why like even I have had moments when I heard how much my buddy's making and stuff like this and Selmo, I'm like, damn, man, remote closing. Maybe that's something I should look into more. Because here's the thing. The true reality, right? Like, let's say in something like ghostwriting, let's say that you get up to 20K a month or something like this. Well, you'll probably have profit margins that are more like, let's say 50, 60% or something like this. So you're not actually making like a full 20K. The remote closer is not running a business. And it's like, yeah, they are on the clock and stuff like this, but they have no business expenses. So when they make 15K a month, they're making 15K a month profit, right? So that's like if you were running a ghostwriting agency or something, that's like the equivalent of doing like $30,000 revenue. So there's also like that aspect of it, which does make it pretty appealing if you find the right role, right? And I guess another thing too is like you could always start something like this, and if it didn't work out, like you're very free to like just part ways probably at any point. And sometimes you have to go into it sucks, but you sometimes have to go into the actual offer and start with a company and like to actually see what it would be like to work with them. But if there's a ton of red flags, then
yeah, I had that same thought. Like when I did that coaching program and I was growing my agency, if I made 10K a month, that means I had to have a pretty good handful of clients. I had to find those clients myself. I had to fulfill for them myself. Like there was way more work and expenses that went into making 10K a month doing that. And then when I got offered the high ticket role, I literally, like, not immediately, but I pretty quickly kind of stopped doing the agency work and just did the high ticket closing, because I was like, if I make 10K a month doing this, like you said, I have no expenses. There's really no like ongoing fulfillment upkeep for me. I basically wake up, I look at my calendar, I'm like, okay, I have 6 calls today. I talk to that person, I close them, I get paid. And there were many times in my mind where I was like if I closed a 7K paid in full deal and I'm making 15% off that, there were a lot of times where I was like, what I just made from talking to this person for an hour is what I would have made for fulfilling for a client for a month. So I see the appeal to it 100%. Like I said, the biggest hang up for me is just like, I just don't know that I want to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah, to bring it back, like the whole client relations aspect of things, that is something that is very appealing. Like I had an analogy go through my mind as you're speaking there of like a remote closer is like, like a batter going up, and they're just paid basically just to swing, right? And that's it. And when they hit a home run, it's like they're not even dealing with that client afterwards. Like your entire job is just to close sales. So when you do clock out at the end of the day, like you're actually done. Aside from, the sales development, like getting better at sales, clocking your tracking your clients and all that aspect of things. But with a business owner, with an agency owner, especially when you're operating at a high level, you have a lot of clients. You're gonna get clients messaging you sometimes at 9 p.m. at night or something like this, or of course you can set boundaries and stuff, but it's not going to be quite as smooth. Sometimes it's not as smooth as people imagine. So.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. That actually reminded me of I interviewed a ghostwriter like about a month ago who does like celebrity memoirs. So she writes like books for people. And she said that after a few years of doing it, she has what she calls an asshole fee. She doesn't tell the client that that's what it is, but she's like, that's what it is. It's an asshole fee. So she's like, if I start working with somebody and we're like into the project and, we've done all the interviews and stuff, and then we're in it, like we're fully in it. And then they start, showing me signs like that. Like they're messaging me at 11 p.m. and expecting responses, or they're just being a pain in the ass in one of the ways clients do. She'll basically hit them up and again, not say that it's an asshole fee, but she's like, hey, I'm noticing that we're creeping out of scope here. Like she's pretty clear about like, these are the hours that I will be responsive in. And it's like, it seems like you want a little bit more like one-on-one attention than what we initially agreed to. So I can do that, but it's going to be, 20% more or whatever. But internally, she calls it her asshole fee, because she's like, if somebody's being an asshole, I'm going to charge them for that. And she specifically then uses that increase, so that extra pay, for like extra self-care stuff for her. So she's like, I'll literally use that to like buy myself massages and shit to like just help myself deal with that client. Because with her, like when she's writing a memoir for somebody, some of her longest projects have been like 2 years. And sometimes when you're so far into it, she's like, I'm not necessarily looking to like get out and turn around, even though I have been paid up until that point. It's more so just like, okay, I need to charge a little bit more to make this a more enjoyable experience for me.
That's legit. I honestly do not blame her at all. I don't think that that's even remotely unethical. And also, let's look at who she's actually working with. Celebrity memoirs? Are you kidding? Like, can you imagine how intensive that is? Like, and like, that's like very one-on-one, and there's a lot that goes into that. So I don't blame her. That's also pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I thought that was super funny.
What does your friend Gage do, Mike, that does the high ticket sales? Is it for a coaching program, or is it?
So when he was doing it, he was actually at one point he was closing for a big ghostwriting agency, and he closed a lot of deals for them. He really helped them kind of take things to the next level and kind of get into that like $1 million territory. When I think that they they were probably doing like maybe $500,000 or something like this, and he helped them get into that $1 million plus territory. Right now he's not doing it.
He was doing some trainings in Growth Ghost, I think, right? Is it that Gage?
Yeah, it's the same Gage. Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I had a buddy actually that had a pretty high paying account executive role at a software company that called me yesterday. He'd only been there for like 8 months and he got laid off like yesterday. And he was getting paid like $150,000 salary plus full benefits. He was really close to closing his first sale. They're like enterprise deals, so pretty big deals or whatever. And he was saying that he thinks that he was the only AE that was about account executive that was about to close, and they canned him. He thinks that they canned him because he was getting close to getting commission. I have no idea if not, but I was just like, that's just the world of like the employment world is a little bit doggy dog. You know, that just kind of, I get it though. They're spending a lot of money. If they got like 5 AEs that they're paying $150,000 each year with all the benefits and they're not closing and they raise money, that happens all the time where like they think that they're going to, all these startups are going to come in making all this money and then they throw the venture capitalists throw all this money at them. And as soon as they're not making anything, heads start flying. But it's crazy to me that they don't like just make things more sustainable somehow. It's kind of weird to me that they throw all this money at things and then kind of just start firing people. I don't know.
Damn. Yeah, that's always like the scary part to me about like putting all my eggs in one basket, whether it's being a full-time employee or just like being a subcontractor that becomes like really focused on one client. Because I've done both. I've been an employee. I was somebody that graduated like top of my class out of college. I got like a better paying job than most of my fellow graduates did. So I kind of went into it thinking like, oh, I'm set. Like I'm going to be good. And then lost that job because it was technically a nonprofit and they said they didn't have the funding to keep my position, which who knows, but that's what I got told. And then my second job that I got, which I thought was going to be like a long-term thing for me, company went bankrupt after the pandemic. And after those two experiences, I was like, damn, maybe being a full-time employee isn't like the safe, stable path that I've always believed it to be, because you are putting all your eggs in one basket. But then I've also done the other thing where like became an entrepreneur, grew my agency, got a bunch of clients, and then got offered the high ticket sales role. And then that became basically all I did. And then, you know, that program has been kind of going downhill more or less. Like they don't have nearly as much traffic or leads as they used to. And I'm like, okay, well, I did it again. I put all my eggs in one basket and I got to do something else now. And so it's like, obviously we have our ghostwriting interview offer that we've always done simultaneously, but like that was never like the full-time thing of like, okay, the focus is growing the agency and getting clients. So I don't know. I that's like a lesson that I've taken from it is like, I don't know that I ever want to put all my eggs in one basket, because then, you know, you get a $150K salary and then you can just lose it and be like, well, shit, starting from the ground up again, I guess.
Plus it takes a long time, usually, if you're getting paid that high, to find another role that pays that much, because unemployment's not going to pay you shit. And then you got to go out there and try to, it's going to take him probably 6 months to a year to find that next role. That's the part that's fucked, is like, and the economy is not necessarily great right now either. So it's, and I think that a lot of people too that might even feel safe to get jobs at like, I don't know, like Meta say, and then they cut like 5,000, 10,000 people out of their workforce just to like cut costs or whatever. So I don't know. The whole thing is, I think you always kind of have to like diversify and like constantly almost be like, I have friends that like were employees like their whole career, and some of them would constantly be applying for jobs as their employees, constantly like literally. I find that exhausting, but just to keep ahead of like being ready to like leave at any moment, essentially.
Yeah. I find it interesting when I've heard a few people say this, like when we were all in the full stack creator community, there was a bunch of people in that community who still had jobs and they were like just kind of building their personal brands on the side. And I heard from at least two people that at some point they talked about how they either had to like keep it on the down low. They're like, my job can't know that I'm building this business and this brand on the side. Or they at some point got like reprimanded by their job and was like, hey, you can't be posting too much about this because like we want people when they look at your LinkedIn profile to see that like you represent our company. And I understand to an extent, like if that person is like a very like front facing person or they're like supposed to represent that company, I can understand to an extent. But I also, in the same breath, I think it's pretty wild to me, especially just today when companies are like I've heard stories of companies downright forbidding people to like have a side hustle. And I'm like, first of all, I don't think your company
show me that in the contract.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I had this one woman who told me that, and I'm like, I mean, I believe you that they're telling you this, but I'm telling you, I don't think they can enforce that because they're kind of like infringing on your human rights at this point. Like
it's a social media platform, you know?
Yeah, there might be some kind of like conflict of interest of like, you know, if you're part of a marketing agency and you're growing your own marketing agency on the side, yeah, there's probably some line you shouldn't cross of like poaching clients and whatever. But if a workplace is telling you like, we don't want you growing your own brand, we don't want you having a side hustle, I'd say fuck that company because like how can you ask me not to have a backup plan in today's world?
You need one.
Yeah, I think it's cool when companies encourage people. Like I've heard this a lot about Diary of a CEO of their team, that they've always encouraged all their team members like grow your own brand. Like, you know, as long as you're doing your work and the quality's there, like you should grow your own brand. And I obviously don't know that that's true, but I've heard multiple people who used to be on the Diary of a CEO team talk about that. Like, you guys should grow your own businesses. Like, they want people to be entrepreneurial. And I think that's cool. Like, yeah, you run the risk then of people leaving, but like, I think a really good team should encourage people to want to grow.
100%.
Yeah, and obviously there are going to be times where you have to put all your eggs in one basket, because if you're constantly like looking in other places, like I've always found that success comes when you focus on one thing, right? But yeah, you have to focus on one thing at a time, but also be ready to pivot.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. I think there can be different ways of diversifying. Like maybe, I don't know. Like for me, I don't feel super safe when I have one client who's responsible for all my income. Like that makes me a little weary. But if I'm focusing on like one offer, one service, but I have multiple clients, that feels a little different to me. I think there is something to be said for like having a focus and not being all over the place in terms of like who you serve and what you do. But the thing that makes me uncomfortable is knowing that one person or one entity is responsible for my livelihood. Maybe it's just because of my history, but that keeps me on edge a little bit more than knowing that like I have multiple streams of income.
Also just having cash, I guess, on hand to like not need it at that moment. I always feel like that's the best. If I have enough cash where I don't need like to go get a job or like have some deal that I don't want to do, because I guess just having enough, like, I feel like everything always comes back to cash flow, right? If like I'm fine for the next year or two or whatever, I don't really need to put myself in positions where I'm desperate or whatever. So I think that part of it is all, and then just investing and planning for the future. But it's kind of hard though when you're like just trying to like fucking make money today.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Everything's harder when you're like, I got to make rent this month and I'm not sure where it's coming from. Every decision gets harder.
And just not buying stupid shit too. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Of like, I don't know, like I have a car payment now. I think me and Kelsey were talking about this before on the call, but like, I don't know, like it's like $1,000 a month, right? I have like $11,000 left to pay off of it, but an extra $1,000 a month is a lot of money, and I can't wait till that payment is done and I own it, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, cool, I have like an extra $1,000. I'm gonna go blow it on coffee and fucking lunch and fucking dinner or whatever. Like, it's not super easy to blow $100 like in LA, like on any given day on stupid shit. So I think that part of it too is just like lifestyle creep and just making sure, because I was guilty of just not like just, oh, I'm gonna live in the moment and just treat myself to fucking whatever, like this $8 drink and every day or whatever, and just this stupid shit or whatever. It adds up quickly. I don't want to be in this point too where I'm like constantly monitoring myself, but I try to think about like just my future more these days, and like compounding interest and things like that. The reverse of like credit cards, because credit cards, you think about it, it's like a good way to keep you poor. Like they're just stealing all of your interests and like you're never going to pay it off or whatever. So it's just, I don't know. I really feel like everything boils back down to like just good financial habits, which I'm having to learn later in life.
Don't we all?
The boring shit.
I've never spoken to somebody that was like, yeah, I grew up learning really great and sound financial habits. Like everybody kind of, it seems like everybody kind of figures it out once they realize they have bad financial habits. Then you're like, okay, well, how am I supposed to do this? Like, I feel like when I became an entrepreneur, my like relationship with money just like cracked wide open. I was like, I don't actually know what to do with my money. Like when I'm not making a paycheck from a company that, like, you know, here in Canada, if you get a job and it's a decent job, after 90 days or whatever, you get your benefits. They do it's like an RRSP contribution match. So like every paycheck, a certain amount goes into your RRSP, which is, I think, similar to like a 401k in the US. And the company will match it. So they'll put some in there for you. Your health insurance is taken care of and comes off your paycheck. But when you leave that and you start working for yourself and you're like, I'm completely just managing my own money, like it's a rude awakening. You're like, what do I do with this money? Like, what's the smart thing to do? Like, I was never taught about investing. I don't know. I didn't even know at the time, like, how much should I set aside for taxes? And I know I've said this to you guys before, but that's why I think everybody who works for themselves should read the book Profit First, because it teaches you that on like a very basic level. Like if you're making your own money, here's like a very simple system for what to do with it so that you know you're taking care of yourself in all aspects and your business is actually taking care of you, not just like squeaking you by. But yeah, I feel like if you want to if you want to really like crack open your money relationship, start working for yourself. It's a lot.
Oh yeah. It also changes your relationship or how you think about taxes.
Yeah.
The employee thinks about taxes so different because like the way that they've worked it out, right? End of the year comes, a lot of people they get that money back, right? In taxes. Mm-hmm. So they can think of taxes as like, oh, tax time, sweet, I'm going to get some money back. So it completely reframes how you probably should be thinking of it because you don't feel like you're getting gouged. But then the moment that you switch into entrepreneur mode, then it's like, oh, yeah, now I have to fork over money. I'm a lot more aware of it. So
yeah, personal and business tax. Yeah. When I used to work a full-time job, tax time was like, oh, how much am I going to get back? Like, woohoo. Now, not so much now because we do the Profit First system. So like, I know that come tax time, we have the money. But those first few years, tax time was like very stressful because I'm like, fuck, are we going to even have enough to cover what we owe? Because you just never knew. Like between my husband and I, we had both of our personal income taxes and then we had our business income taxes. So usually the personal is higher. I found for us at least, like I would almost always owe more personally than we would for the business, because with the business you get to offset expenses and stuff. But yeah, it's a completely opposite experience. Now at tax time, you're like, fuck, how much am I gonna owe? So there's definitely something to be said for every time you get paid, setting aside like 15% and just having that pile there, so that that February, March, April season isn't just like creeping up on you with anxiety.
Yeah, I always around like February have to spend like at least like a good amount, like 10 hours reconciling shit and like pulling expenses and all that shit. It's so tedious and annoying. But all your expenses. But I also feel like too, like now that I don't know if you guys are the same, I think that I would be willing to spend a lot more money previously, like on like just marketing and stupid shit before, like just to test things out. And I feel like I'm more conservative now than I was before, like with like, I don't know, I might before in the past spend like $4,000 on a website or something like that and just like, oh, fuck it. And like now I'm a lot more like, oh, I'll just make it myself. So I think that things are just like, obviously it would be better if someone else made it, I think, but it'll just get me by until I test the demand of something.
Yeah, sometimes you do have to just like get the website done for cheap.
Yeah,
for sure. And just and let it make you some sales and stuff like this, and then consider maybe going with the paid one, because you can get a lot done with a cheap website. I once had a cheap website with a VSL on it on my Twitter, and I was running some ads at the same time, and I had people booking calls, but I didn't pay a single dollar for that website. I had some young kid from like Eastern Europe who was like, hey, I'm looking to get some experience, this and that. Can I make you a website for free? And he wrote the copy for it and stuff. I had some recommendations for him and that. But yeah, he did it, and he even like hooked it up with like Google and stuff like this, so I could see where people were coming from around the world and stuff like this. Yeah, like, and I mean, truth be told, I don't really actually think anybody should be doing that much work for free, but I did give him a good recommendation and testimonial and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays it's super easy to build a website quickly with AI. Like there's platforms like Lovable that you can literally just put in a big prompt of like, this is what I want. This is the, site that you should look for reference for like information on me. This is what I want included on it. These are the colors, and it'll make you a website. So you can actually do like what that guy did for you a lot easier now, where like it could take him 20 minutes to make that website, and then he sells it for $2,000 or something.
Yeah. Back when he built this, the days of vibe coding were not even a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How important do you guys think a website is?
I think it is important. I actually don't have one right now, because I would have had to make a new one just because my offer is entirely different. So currently don't have one. And that said, I do book inbound calls without having a website, but I still do think it's important. I don't think it's going to hurt you. I think it's only really going to add to what you're doing. And I also really do like video sales letters personally, because I think you can really effectively communicate what you're offering. And I think people automatically trust you way more when they hear your voice and see what you look like and all this. And you're not just anonymous, right? Yeah. I think that's success with them.
I think you don't need one 100%, but it's nice to have one if you have the time and the money. Like, because I see people like closing shit out of like Google Docs. So that I think there's like people that overcomplicate it and over-engineer a website with no customers at all, and then pay like $10,000 and have 0 people coming to it. And then there's people that close things out of a Google Doc and don't need it at all. So I think somewhere in between the two, there's probably like, I think you need to be a good salesperson is number one. And then if you can close high ticket from anywhere, it doesn't, like Mike probably doesn't even need a website, but like at the same time, it wouldn't hurt if you had one to like, if you wanted to do like ads and drive people to you can't really do that if like you don't really have it. So I guess if you want to drive a bunch of traffic somewhere, like you kind of need somewhere to have it or whatever. But at the same time, they probably just DM you.
Yeah, I think the key is having something that shows up if people were to like search you. Because if somebody's like, "Hey, I've heard pretty good things about, this Mike Bolton guy. I'm going to do like a quick search on Google, like Mike Bolton ghostwriting or something." I think that's the whole point of a website, is having something that shows up to show some amount of proof or credibility. I don't think it necessarily has to be a website. Like you said, Mike, it could be a VSL. It could be your LinkedIn page that shows like tons of proof. I honestly don't think I've had anybody in the last like 5 years be like, "Well, let me see your website." Because in my experience, somebody asking for that, it's an objection. Like what they're really saying is they're saying something else. And it's, it's the same as if somebody asks like, "Well, can you send me more information?" You're like, "What information are you looking for that we haven't talked about on this call?" Like it's an objection. So I think it's just about having some kind of social proof that if somebody's thinking about hiring you and they do a little searchy search, that you're not just like a fucking ghost on the internet. So whether that's a website, a VSL, like social page with a lot of proof and frequent posts, like just something to stand in for that.
Yeah, LinkedIn has basically everything that you need to create something that could basically work as a website anyway. Like you could use your featured section in certain ways, your about section in certain ways, your bio, your banner. You can have everything on there, right? You can make your featured section have like I'm sure you could put like PDFs and stuff like that. There's a case study section as well, like on LinkedIn. So you can really beef up your LinkedIn. I've done it a little bit, but even I haven't even hit. I've maybe done 75% of what you could do with a LinkedIn profile, believe it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I've been trying to be more on my LinkedIn recommendation section. So like even after I do like a free interview with somebody, if they say, if they give me really good feedback, I'm like, "Sweet, can you leave me a recommendation?" And I'll send it to them. And I try to make it like as simple as possible for them so they don't even have to think about it. I'm like, "You could just answer these 3 questions or totally make it your own." But I try to like spoon feed it to them, because I think it was you, Mike, that told me, or maybe one of you guys, that said the recommendations help you a lot in terms of like SEO or showing up on Google or something like that.
I think that I'm pretty sure that like the AI does look at those recommendations. They'll definitely look at like Reddit and all that. It'll pick up some of that shit because when I Google like my name or whatever, the AI will pick up some shit from my LinkedIn. I could see like the source or whatever.
Yeah.
And Substack too. So like that's what's interesting, is it's kind of like taking stuff that we've written online and then kind of pulling it back in. That's what's weird about it. I think the more we do this, like the easier our names will come up and like kind of tell people what we do, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think I better hop off. I have a sales call.
All right. You guys,
All right.
All right. See you.
All right. See you guys. Good luck.
Thanks.
Good luck.